The present moment that you're living through is really exactly what you need at that moment. Universal communication is not, it's not language, it's not English, it's not Spanish, it's not French, it's not German. It's energy. How come that these like high performers, billionaires, how can they do so much? How can Elon Musk found 5 companies and still have time and do all these things? Before you're 7, you're being run by programs. You're being programmed consistently because we're in theta brainwaves, which is actually hypnosis. So everything going on around us, we are actually being programmed. The way I've perceived transformation in my life is...
Emilio, first of all, thanks for coming, man. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Well, I think it's great to have you today on my podcast because I haven't had another interview in the past few weeks, and I think it's like just great to have my comeback with you. And yeah, I am excited for our conversation today. And well, to start researching about you to be a little more prepared for our conversation, I came to listen a couple podcasts in which you told the story of your transition from a place of partying and being someone who you think you were not into a place of spirituality and development. And what I want to do as a beginning, as sort of an introduction, is to bring you to these moments in your life so that you can tell us a bit about your experience and about your transformation.
Yes, for sure. So you probably heard the story. I'm going to tell a little bit about what happened. I was in the middle of high school and I was living in the United States. I was living in California. My life was basically basketball, my friends, and the beach, and that was it. And when I was 16, around your age, my dad came up to me and he told me, "Hey, Emilio, we're gonna move to Colombia." And I had grown up all my life in the United States. So that transition, I was like, this doesn't fit in my mind that I'm actually gonna have to leave everything I know behind and move to a country where I don't know anything. Both of my parents are Colombian, but I never grew up with the culture. I didn't have the mannerisms that people have in Colombia. And I was basically an American kid. And I went through like a little rebellious stage where I was, not really listening to my parents, not really talking to my dad, a little resentful. And eventually when we got to Colombia, I just wanted to, explore. I wanted to fit in. A lot of the things that were guiding my actions were, how can I fit into this new culture? How can I dress the same as other people? So my identity, what I had for myself, was shattered basically, and I had to really see where I could fit in and see what was popular, what was not, and then that's what led me to getting into the whole party lifestyle. And of course, in Latin America, the culture, the drinking culture is bigger than in the US, I would say. So really, that's where it all started. And towards the end of high school, that was where I was like at my peak. I was going out a lot, and I moved to Madrid to start college, where I am right now. And Madrid, if you think Colombia and Mexico are big party scenes, then Madrid is another level to that. So when I got to Madrid, that was my identity already. Like, I'm the guy that goes out. I'm the guy that, can drink a lot, all these things. And in a way, that wasn't really me. It was just a persona that I had put onto myself to try to go with the flow, to try to build this reputation, status for myself that wasn't really aligned with what I enjoyed doing. It was just that unconscious behavior that we have when we're not really in the present moment and saying like, is this truly reflecting who I am as a person? And of course, like at such a young age, like you and me both, we're still developing that. We're still developing
Yeah.
that identity. We're still developing all these different things that we uh, think that we want to go after. So that's when, and it's the most important time actually to start building who you are during this moment. Because right now, and after 7 years old, that's when you really become conscious and self-aware. And after that, before you're 7, you're being run by programs. You're being programmed consistently because we're in a brainwave state that's much slower. We're in a theta brainwaves, which is actually hypnosis. So everything going on around us, we are actually being programmed. And those programs, up until we're 7 years old, that's what really constitutes most of our beliefs and our the ways we see the world. So after we're 7, it will become harder to change your internal beliefs and your perceptions as well. So that's why it's super important to understand these things at a young age, so that when we're 30, 40, we have kids, we're not still being run by the programs that we were given by our parents, by our early childhood society, everything, all these early, I would say, programs. It's really a program, and
Yeah.
being aware of it now, I think, is the most important time, because you can start rebuilding and reprogramming there's a lot of limiting beliefs. It's a lot of automatic negative thinking that we have going on in our minds consistently. So when I was in college, I started to, plant some seeds of awakening. One of the books that I recommended to you was A New Earth, which I didn't pick up until a bit after, but I was very grateful, and I was very lucky because my mom is very into spirituality. She's a Kundalini yoga instructor, sound healer. She started doing that in California. She was formerly a lawyer, but when I was in high school and living with my parents, I saw that aspect, but I ignored it. I just said, my mom is this person. She likes to meditate, whatever. Like, I don't want to, get into that. That's fine. She can do her. I'll do me, and that's it. And then when I got to college, it was that repetitive pattern of going out, really bad habits. I was sleeping 5 hours a day. I had classes even in the mid-afternoon, and there's days where I couldn't get up of my bed in my dorm to go to class. And if I was able to drag myself to class, there was no energy. There was no attention span. I couldn't focus. And that obviously reflected on my academic performance. So eventually my classes started to get really, really stressful. And towards the end of the first semester in college, I was on the brink of failing 3 classes. And I was so surprised because, well, it wasn't really a surprise. I knew that I wasn't focused on academics. I was first year of university. All I wanted to do was explore Madrid, meet girls, drink as much as possible, all of these things. But there was at a point where it was a tipping point that if I kept doing this consistently, first of all, my body was going to collapse, which it kind of did, because there was a point where I got really, really, really sick and I had to take antibiotics for 3 weeks. It was that bad that I had to go to live with my uncle in Madrid. I was living in a dorm by myself, and my mom had to come all the way from Colombia to take care of me, basically, and be there for me. And that's when I took advantage, and I knew she was into this, like, spirituality, wellness things. I know she meditated. And don't ask me why or how, but before she arrived, I started doing my own research. Like, how come that these, like, high performers, billionaires, how can they do so much? How can Elon Musk found 5 companies and still have time and do all these things? And how I can't even go to class and study for my exams. Why are these people so far away from where I am right now? And that's when I found habits. That's when I found meditation. That's when I found journaling. All these things that, people in our community know about and practice. Hopefully, those things started to come into my life. And I was so broken, I would say, that my mind wasn't closed to it. I was open to anything, really. So that's when my mom came, I asked her, "Can you please teach me how to fucking meditate?" Because I need to learn this. I need to, everywhere I'm reading, it's mindfulness, meditation, do all this stuff, and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to start, honestly. And that's why I always say, like, it was a blessing to have my mom there when I needed, and have that support. So she started teaching me how to meditate. I was also learning about habits, why they're so important. I read that the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was the first book that I read, and it was actually important because it was the first book that I took with me to college, the only book I took with me. Because my dad and my mom, they had like a bookshelf in my house in Colombia, and I was going to college, going away, and I just like chose that one. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take this for the plane. Of course, I didn't read it to the plane there to
Yeah.
Madrid, and it sat in my dorm for 5, 6 months, and I started reading it during that time as well. Started learning about habits, the concept of sharpening the saw, sharpening your mind, meditation, all these things started to just fall into my lap because, and it was a quote that I read from Robin Sharma actually. He says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in high school, when I was living in the same house with my mom, and she was meditating every morning and she was doing her yoga and all of these things, I didn't even see it in my perception. In my field of vision, I didn't even see that. It was planting a seed, but I wasn't ready to fully embrace it. And I think I needed to go through all these things that were happening academic wise, health wise, and ego wise. A lot of things opened me up and like cracked me open to start letting all this wisdom knowledge in. That's when I found podcasting. That's when I found books. That's when I found online mentors, people that really helped me during those times because I was open to it and my mind was open. And the most important thing was I was curious about it as well. I was curious about it, and in that curiosity, I fell in love with learning. I fell in love with just learning something new, how it can help me in my personal growth, how I can teach that to others. And that was really the first really initiations to this whole world of wellness, spirituality, entrepreneurship. Like all these things are what really sparked that.
And by doing these conversations, I get to listen to inspiring stories such as this one of yours. And when you said about the lesson and the teacher getting to the student when he's ready, I remember in a conversation I had with my friend Mike from Underdog Books, in which he told me the story of how he basically went out of his house and was living in the streets for a couple weeks. He was with his brother and with another man, and something happened. They were stealing food or something, and Mike told this man that he couldn't do it, and the guy told him never to say that he cannot do something. And well, in that case was like to steal something. But what he said that years later resonated with him a lot was this part of never saying you cannot do something. And I think it's interesting, and maybe it is sort of what happened with you, that the lessons came into your life even years before this experience of your body collapsing, but you weren't able like to get them and to internalize them until this moment when you opened to learn them basically. And let me get this right, were you born in the States or in Colombia?
I was born in the States, in
Oh,
Washington, D.C.
nice. Okay, yeah, cool. And then, so after this first semester, you started changing your habits. You started meditating and implementing things as sharpening the saw, as you say. And then, how have the following semesters been? Are you, because you're still in college, right?
Yes, I'm in my last month of college actually. So I'm graduating in no time, basically.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you, thank you. That was the first year. I'm fourth year now. So when I started meditating, it wasn't an instant shift. It was an internal shift, definitely. It always starts internally when we start changing a lot of things. And since our internal world is just a reflection of our outer world, it also takes some time for that change to be perceived outside you. So a lot of things happened. I had my group of friends here. But when I started like really going deep into this performance, health, spiritual stuff, I was at a point where, I decided that I needed to surround myself with people that were gonna fuel that. And I didn't necessarily intentionally like separate and split up with my group friend of my group friends, but naturally some things started falling away, like someone would leave, or you would gradually decrease the level of communication you have with a certain group or a person, and then new people start coming to your life. And I truly believe that it's because when your energy changes, if you're lifting your energy, you're going on a higher vibration, the field around you is attracting different things. You're attracting different types of people, and you're resonating with different stuff. So amazing people came into my life. I still kept a lot of friendships from my first year, of course, but others I lost, that's life. That's transformation. It's change. It's evolution. It took me a while to really understand that, but as time went by, and now I can look back and say, this is why it had to happen. It had to happen this way. There's a divine timing for everything, and I really truly believe that. I mean, there is something guiding us, a guiding force. When we put our intention out there, when we put our intention that we want to get better, that was my intention. I want to improve. I want to see how I can do better, see what my limitations are, and then go past that and understand that if I started internalizing that I was this person that parties, I'm an average student, I don't like to cook, so I eat, whatever I can find, order food out. All those things you identify with them, and then one of the main functions of your mind is to align your beliefs and about yourself and about the world with your reality. So when you can truly shift how you view yourself, it all starts with how you see yourself. So I had to go through a lot of like identity shift work. I had to say, no, I'm actually a straight A student. Like I actually get these 10s out of 10s on my exams. I read books. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy going out and doing different things. I enjoy seeing discomfort. And those things that I started to internalize. At first, you're like, your ego is like, yeah, sure, sure, sure. Uh-huh. You really just want to go out and do all this bullshit. But
Yeah.
as the longer you internalize it, you put that seed in your mind, then the only obligation of your mind is to reflect that in your outer world. It just reflects it to you. Well, I placed the intention of, getting better in my exams. My GPA started going up dramatically, but it's also because once you identify with something, your actions follow that intention. Your actions follow that. So if I identify myself with someone that loves to go to the gym, for example, and work out, and the more I really internalize that, then what's going to be my action? Just go to the gym, until you build that habit in your subconscious. You do it without thinking about it. You just do it because that's who you are. You're doing it from a level of being, not a level of that doing, which is the doing is also another form of just resistance, because you're trying to do this, do this, do this, do that. And I think it's part of the process. It's part of like changing and grinding until you become that. So with my podcast, for example, it took some while for me to really understand that I see myself as a podcast host and visualize myself interviewing these people, uh, and having amazing conversations, learning a lot, until that really just manifested in itself, because I truly believed it. And that belief carried my action. It carried that persistence of going two, three, maybe four emails further, and seeing if I could talk to this person that I know was aligned with what I was in my path. And also, the right people will get to you when you need them. The right books will fall into your lap when you need them. There's this book called Ask and It Is Given. I've heard a lot about it. I plan on reading it very soon. But just the title tells me everything I need to know. It's
Mhm.
you just have to ask, and placing that intention. And as Joe Dispenza, he says, you combine an intention with an elevated emotion. You have to you have to really feel that whatever you want to put out into the world and put out into the field is going to come to you, because when you combine that with the emotion. So for me, the emotion was, okay, I can intellectually say, oh, I want to interview this person. That's the first step. The second step is feeling what it would actually feel like joy, emotion, that passion, even a little bit of like nervousness, excitement,
Mhm.
to be actually face to face with this person. And what Joe Dispenza actually says is the emotion is the part of the process that is like a magnet. It attracts the experience to you. It attracts everything to you that you put out with your intention and your emotion. So
Mhm. Oh yeah,
that was the start.
actually, with all the things you are saying, I can remember like three big lessons from three great books, and I want to mention them so also people listening can like have them in mind. And the first one is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which is the book that I am currently reading. Well, one of the
Mm,
books that I am reading. And in there, one of the first things that T. Harv Eker talks about is your money blueprint in this case, but let's just say your blueprint, and it is your set of beliefs, which then creates your thoughts, and then your feelings, and then your actions, and finally your results. And I mean, that's from my perspective, basically what you said. If you change these beliefs and specifically your identity, then you are gonna start building different results. And this brings me
mm,
to the second book, which is Atomic Habits. And I have read Atomic Habits two times. And actually, I think the impactful one has been the second one. And the only lesson, or the biggest one that I have taken, has been the one of not setting the goal of having the habit of going to the gym, but setting the goal
mm,
of being a person who goes to the gym. And I think that that is
exactly.
very powerful. That's how I have been applying it with different things. For example, the Wim Hof method. The first time when I read this book, I tried to apply the Wim Hof method with the four-step system, but it didn't really work. And then a couple weeks or even months ago, this year, I set the goal of just being a person who does the Wim Hof method, and I just like integrated it with my morning routine, and now I do it on a daily basis.
Mm.
And it's not, it doesn't take like a lot of energy or a lot of effort to want to do it, because I just identify myself as someone who does it.
Yeah,
And
it's who you are. It's now you're at part of your
mhm,
identity.
yeah, for
Mm.
sure. And then the third book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Amazing
And
book.
from that, yeah, and from that book, I basically like merged it with what you said about, like, yes, having like a plan and the thought and the desire, but also having like the emotions to to create this new reality, or to achieve this goal you are setting for yourself.
Mm.
Those were just like three books which maybe were not the most impactful for me, like are not my favorite ones, but still have had an impact on me, which have formed my identity. And I think this is a great moment to start talking about A New Earth. Because
Wait,
well
you
I
mean this one? You mean this one?
yeah. Yeah. So you already talked a little about how this book came into your life, but I want specifically to talk about our collaboration post with it a
Mm.
couple of weeks ago. And in that post, you said that your favorite quote from the book is the following, and I will read it for people listening. And it says, "Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at the moment." And what is the specific thing of this paragraph which resonates like the most with you?
I would say it resonated a lot with me. That was actually when I read it for the second time, and it really popped for me. It was like because I was going through a time where a lot of changes were going on in my life. So I had recently, broken up with my ex girlfriend. Recently broken up with my ex business partner and things like this, and I didn't really understand why it was happening, why all these things were being kind of taken away from me in a way. But when I read this book again, I always go back to this book when I need some clarity. It's not a book that I read once and I got my takeaways and that's it. It's a book that's really like a mentor, and I don't have this type of relationship with a lot of books, but this one is, it literally speaks to you when you need it. So I pick it up and I go to a random page, and something in there will actually help me in whatever problem I'm going through in my life. It's crazy how that works. So at that
It
moment, I
is.
was going through all of this. I was going through all of this, and I got this. I took the book out again. I read that quote, and I was like, so this is all happening because my soul, my consciousness is seeking that evolution. And the things around me are starting to happen. And my ego wants to control them. My ego wants to be like, no, things have to look this way. Things have to be this way. I can't let this happen like this. And I realized that sometimes the present moment that you're living through is really exactly what you need at that moment. And the same things happen when I see other people and when I talk with other people. They tell me their problems, or they tell me something they're going through, and my first internalization of that is like, this is the perfect moment for them right now. And
Mhm.
I see them trying to change it. Like, how can I solve this, fix this? Um, from the mind, we want to solve our problems from the mind. But when you look at it from this higher perspective, when you look at it that everything in your life today, right now, in this present moment, is all there is, first of all, and is exactly what you need. And also, this is another quote from Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. In his book, The Mastery of Self. And I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to try to paraphrase it. And he says that sometimes you need the space between an event and that time for you to heal and understand the lessons that were being given to you at that moment. That's when you understand that we can always say in hindsight, looking back 5 years, like, I needed to go through that moment. I needed to go through that moment. But we always make that realization in the future. Like when we're 6 months later, 5 years later, some people even 20 years later, they realize, oh, I had to go through that divorce. But if we can make that realization in the same moment that it's happening, that really helps the process of healing. And I do agree that there needs to be some time between the event and the healing. There needs to be some time, but as in the quantum field, there's no time, there is no space, there is no time. You can actually make the healing now in the present moment, and it reduces the pain. Really, the pain needs to be felt, but when you realize that you're going through this pain because it's exactly what you need, it's peaceful. It's a very grounded state to be in, to realize that.
Here, I want to tell a story that happened to me recently before going into another part of the book, which has to do a lot with this. And so now, talking about my story, a couple days or weeks ago, I was running in the park, and I was running, and there weren't many people, but still a guy approached me. And we were running together, and he just started asking, like, oh, why are you running? Are you training for anything? Or are you trying to get in shape or whatever? And we ran like a lap together maybe, but then he started asking things like, oh, and what's your name and stuff. And when he asked what's your name, I told him my name was Santiago. Which it isn't, but just for my safety, I said that it is Santiago. And he said, oh, my name is Santiago too. And then I faked that I was getting tired when we finished the lap because I didn't want to be with him anymore. And that was it. That was the story. But then a couple of minutes later, I was just like attached to that experience and thinking, why did this guy approach me? Because here in Mexico, if a guy approaches you, and especially if you're a teen alone in the park, it's not like the safest thing. And many times those guys are just, people who
Bad
look bad.
intentions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so anyway, nothing really happened, but I still was like attached to this belief that he maybe wanted something from me. And I was just thinking, like, why did this happen to me? Nothing bad really happened, but still it wasn't anything good for me at the moment from my perspective. But then a couple hours later, um, I went to Starbucks with my dad after running, and I was reading what I will read right now. Um, and it was just like a realization that that moment had to happen in order for me to like be more present in these moments and not just be aware to look for my safety, but also to look beyond the experience, look beyond what the guy is saying, and look into what he maybe is and what he his authentic self, for
Yeah.
example, as yes, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. says in his book. um and what I wanted to read is a quote which I liked a lot from A New Earth, which is about space between you and an experience or a thought. And it says, you become like an astronaut who sees the planet Earth surrounded by the vastness of space and realizes a paradoxical truth. The Earth is precious and at the same time insignificant. The recognition that this too will pass brings detachment, and with detachment, another dimension comes into your life, inner space. And that was just like mind blowing because lately, like in the past years, which have been like years of consciousness developing for me, I think I have had many moments in which like I am present, but still I have like space in between what is happening and I can be aware. I don't know, it's just like very weird, but still powerful and beautiful. And that was just like mind blowing because, well, first it helped me realize what I was living and what I have been living many times, these experiences of having space to like appreciate the moment. But it also helped me like to let go of this moment with the guy in the park. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on this quote.
That's incredible, honestly, because and just going off of your story, I think that the universal communication is not, it's not language, it's not English, it's not Spanish, it's not French, it's not German, it's energy. And when you came across this guy, I think there is something about his energy that put you off, and that was an intuitive. Sometimes we let that pass. We let that. We know we come into a room and the vibe of the room is necessarily not cool, or not, like, it doesn't make us feel good, and we override that with our mind. It's like, oh, that's just me, like all this. But it's all about really tuning in to what you feel, and a lot of that space that attaches us to an experience is in our own mind, is in that, that mental space. And because that the mind is the playback of the past, it's the predictor of the future, and it's in the present as well. So our mind is like everywhere at the same time, which creates the space between an experience. What truly like lets you be in that inner space is fully feeling and being in your body. So that's why a lot of ancient philosophies and even spiritual practices, they practice that body awareness. So when you're present in your body, when you're running, when you're doing exercise, if you're not like in your head, you realize that you're there. You're actually in the moment, and you're in a flow state. You're in a flow state is a very interesting phenomenon that I love to research about. I love to put myself in situations where I can be in flow. But I do believe that the present is flow. The present moment is flow state, and you can tap into that when you start getting a bit out of your mind, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, and just really listening to what your body is telling you. In this experience that you shared, your body was telling you, there's something about this guy's energy that is putting me off.
Mhm.
Sometimes there is limiting beliefs and really internal beliefs that affect that, because yeah, of course, we both grew up, well, I grew up with the belief that people that you don't know are dangerous. And especially the countries where we come from, being Colombia and Mexico, well, that's the reality, and it's good to be guarded at some times. But it's truly feeling the energy, what you feel. Then there will be people that can manipulate, and you don't know necessarily what their intentions are, but before they even speak to you, approach to you, you will pick up on their energy. And being the most present as possible, that's why if you're meeting someone new, really listen to what your body tells you about that person. It will let you know, like, your body is so intelligent, so conscious. Even the merging between your energy field and theirs will tell you if it's in alignment with you. If it's not, then you will know that in the very first moments of meeting. So that's what, yeah, that's a really cool story that you shared.
Well, thanks. But still, again, doing my research, I watched the video of yours in which you talked about the 5 second rule, which, yeah, is an idea, a concept by Mel Robbins, right? And I would just like, I would just love it if you could like get a little deeper into this idea of the 5 second rule, but also sort of connect it with what you just said, because I think it kind of resonates and is very similar. And when you listen to your body, you can also, well, you are present and make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first heard that concept of the 5 second rule, it was during an interview that Mel Robbins did. I'm not sure where, but she explains that she used this rule to basically transform her life and start actually taking action on the things that she wanted and she was passionate about. Because she says that we have a window of 5 seconds until the mind comes up with an excuse
Mhm.
or like a reason to why not to do something. And I apply this 5 second rule to a lot of things that, for example, now in the gym I'm going to, there's an ice bath. So I've been practicing a lot Wim Hof lately, and the days where I don't use the 5 second rule, there's a lot of resistance. It's like, oof, today I'd rather just go in the sauna. Like I'm just gonna go in the sauna. That's it. Like no, no, no. And that's because I let the 5 seconds pass. So second 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's when my mind came in. It was, oof, you should go in the sauna today. The ice bath tomorrow. Do it. Just do it tomorrow.
Mm.
But there's days where I walk up to the ice bath and I count 1, 2, 3, and before I get to 5, I go in. Don't even I don't let the mind control the decision. I said, this is my intention from the very beginning. I'm going to hold myself accountable for that and then just do it. And 5 second rule, you can use it in other aspects of your life. It's like, oh, there's this girl that you like, for example, and you don't know how to approach her. You're doubting yourself. Your confidence is low. You don't know what to say to her. And let's say you are sitting next to her on the bus to wherever, and as soon as you let the 5 seconds pass, your mind will come up with excuse to not talk to her that day. It's like, I don't know, like there's probably something in my tooth. My hair is bad today. I don't have gum. I probably have bad breath. Like you will make up an excuse. But if you say 5 second rule, you remind yourself before you hit 5, hi, how are you? And then you talk to her. And that, I mean, it's a very powerful rule. The way I used it in that video is to make better decisions based on how you feel about something. I'm truly a proponent of intuition and making decisions based off if something feels right or not. Of course, some like executive business decisions that you have to take. For example, right now I just joined a startup, and we're doing a lot of things that require heavy decision making. Of course, if you take all your decisions from your emotions, something might go wrong in the process. You also need to incorporate your left brain, your logical thinking, your strategic mind. But it's important to take into account how you feel about something first. Be like, if you're about to go into a partnership with someone or collaborate with someone, and since the very beginning, something doesn't feel clicking, then like, let me think about this again. Because as time goes by, your mind, your logical mind will make up reasons for to override that decision or override your first sensation that you had at the start and ignore your intuition. We all are intuitive beings. We're super we know our bodies are so intelligent that we know what is best for us at the moment we need it. But when we ignore our intuition, when we don't even realize we have that power, that capacity, that capability within us, then that's when we're always in our mind. We're always trying to make decisions from that space before actually going into your heart wisdom. When I say emotions, emotion is not up here. Emotion is here. It's that heart intelligence that we have. So that's how, I mean, combining the 5 second with making more emotion-based decisions, that's when a lot of really good things and things that will align with what you need at the moment will come into your life.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know about the 5 second rule up until yesterday, but still I do think that I have in some way experienced it. And I can identify that with these interviews. I remember one I had with Brian Ford, who is a podcaster and a philanthropist. And I wasn't prepared, to be honest. When the only information I had about him was like 5 podcasts of him, but they were like 2 minutes long, and another TED talk. So in total, I had like maybe 40 minutes of information about him. And I didn't feel like prepared for my interview. And I was like about to DM him through Instagram and tell him the excuse that I was sick or something. Because also, well, in that moment, I think that I wasn't prepared, but it wasn't that. What I was feeling was just like being nervous. But still, I think I just jumped over that idea and did the podcast and still enjoyed it. And yeah, for sure, when you like overcome this 5 seconds, when you do things before the 5 seconds go on, you you start to do things which then are just like amazing, which maybe won't seem amazing in the short term, but in the long term, they are the things that not define you, but define your journey, I think.
I completely agree with that.
Cool. And well, now going into another part of the book, which I have right here, and I think this has in some way to do with what we were talking about, being present, to not let the mind create ideas that will then limit you or just excuses. And it is about like the idea that this is a dream, and the dream is basically just your personal reality, that you, and what you perceive is not like the actual truth, it's just a way to see the truth. And when, well, here it says in the New Earth, when we are awake within the dream, a more benign and wondrous dream arises. This is the New Earth. What are your thoughts on that?
Have you seen the movie The Matrix?
No, I haven't. I think I have seen a couple like parts of it, but not complete.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it's. I had the opportunity also on my podcast to interview an amazing STEM biologist and researcher. His name is Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he talks about that The Matrix is not a science fiction movie. The Matrix is a documentary. Basically, what the movie, the basis of it is that, you know, we were connected to this source, and it's actually like a virtual reality playing out in front of us. And Morpheus, one of the main characters of the movie, offers Neo either a red pill or a blue pill. And he says, you know, you take this blue pill and you won't even know, you'll keep living your life as it is, you'll go through the motions, and who knows where you'll end up. Or you can take the red pill and awaken from your reality, awaken in your dream. So he takes his red pill, and then he realizes all these things. I really recommend you watch it, but it's exactly that. When we're awake in the dream, we can actually function from our conscious mind, not from our programs. And when we function from our conscious mind, we're actually going off our wishes and desires. We're actually going towards the reality that we want to create for ourselves. We don't normally realize this, but we actually create everything around us. We are creators and manifestors of whatever is going on around us. So you create this difficult experience with your friend. It's there to teach you something. Your soul, your higher self, is there to transmit that lesson into you and help you along the way in your evolution of consciousness by providing these experiences to you. So when we step into the role of the creator, we know we're in a dream. We know we're in this type of simulation that we can actually bend the reality towards our favor just through the power of what we said earlier, intention and emotion. Being able to put out an idea into the world, having the belief, as you said, the belief that leads to the thought, that leads to the emotion, that leads to the action. We're actually creating from a very conscious perspective what we want in our life. And that's the power of knowing that this is, it could be, I don't want to sound definitive of the truth, but what if this was all an illusion? What if this was all a dream? How would you change the way you behave if you knew that you could actually create things, and manifest what you want consciously? You're always going to be manifesting. You're always going to be attracting certain people into your life based on your personal vibration. You're always going to be doing things based on your habits, because we're creatures of habit. But when you really go within, and that's one of my favorite concepts, and that's why my previous podcast was called the energy motto. The energy is the untapped sources of internal energy that we all hold. So once you learn and you start going inside yourself, you don't seek that much external validation. You don't seek things outside of you that are going to bring you joy. You actually become that. You become that from within, which then it's a feedback loop, because you become that within, you reflect it into your reality. You become something else within, it reflects onto you. It's a mirror of what you are and perceive internally. So that is the dream. That's what it's about. I think we can all start to plant these seeds of awakening, whether it's a dream, wherever this reality consists of. Maybe learning to wake up and start truly stepping into our role as conscious creators.
And I also think that an interesting or just fun way to put this idea is by I don't know if it's a poem or a saying or whatever, but the paragraph in which says, I read it originally in the 5 a.m. Club, but it says, I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul. And then while reading, it was yesterday, I think, the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, in the first file, which is just like the first idea of the difference between the millionaire mind and the poor mind. T. Harv Eker says that the millionaires create their reality and know that.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, why is this true? And I just tried to like reflect on it, and I remembered this saying of, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. And what does a captain do? What does a captain of a ship do? And the captain doesn't like create the weather or anything. It just sets the direction and controls a little of what happens within the ship or the boat. And that's basically us. Maybe we don't create what happens, but what happens is there to teach us something, and also to, well, yeah, for us to know how to respond and to be the captains of our destiny. And
Yeah.
I don't know, that was just again something like kind of mind blowing when I sort of thought of it. And I also like to think a bit of life as a journey in a ship. Like, imagine having north stars, like your dreams, and just being guided by them and enjoying the journey. And then the journey might take you through storms and through beautiful places. It might take you I don't know, through to be the captain of a cruise ship and to be the captain of just a little boat. But still, it is again, well, I integrate again this idea of being the captain of your soul, and being the one who creates. And by creating, just by being aware of your reality, by bringing this consciousness and presence, which was something again that I like sort of discovered with A New Earth. But the idea of that, when you're present, you are not just doing, but you can consciously do. And thought is now the servant of consciousness. And here I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the difference between the mind, consciousness, and myself? So all these ideas, which might be a little confusing, what do you think is the difference between like this, like who you really are and who you think you are, and the mind? I don't know if you like what gets a little what I mean.
Yeah. So in Eckhart Tolle's book, he talks a lot about the ego, and the ego is rooted in identification and separation. We create these ego, or I mean, our ego is built from a very young age because we live in this world where we see each other as separate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we see our physical bodies, and we see, okay, this is who I am, this is my personal identity. Here's the other person, they're their own identity, they're their own person. That's our own egos interacting with each other on a larger basis. But what they're finding, I mean, in quantum physics, is that everything is energy. We're all interconnected. We're all interconnected. So a lot of what I like about this book is it really explains that on a deep level, which is there's some concepts that are hard to grasp. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's a book that I'm always going back to, and trying to put some things into practice that I learned from this book. And there's a collective consciousness as well. It's not only our consciousness. This is our job to evolve our consciousness, but the collective consciousness on the planet is what's manifesting the dream that we see out in the world. So there's, a collective consciousness right now that is very fear based,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, it's really our it's in our hands. It's in our generation, especially. I don't know if you're still Generation Z, if
Yeah.
how that's how they define it. So Gen Zs, and then the generations below us are gonna be the ones that try to create a new reality on planet Earth through shifting the consciousness of the collective, and it starts with us. Always starts within. That's the main takeaway. Is always starts from within. But in another podcast I had, we started talking about the butterfly and how a butterfly comes to fruition, and it's basically a caterpillar in the beginning of their life,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts eating everything, destruction, getting all these resources for themselves, these caterpillars. And then at some moment, they call them the imaginal cells inside the caterpillar that basically notify the caterpillar that, it's time to have your metamorphosis. And that's when nature brings that caterpillar into a cocoon, and the metamorphosis after that is the butterfly. And I think that's where humanity is right now. We're destroying, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of species and ecosystems, and we're taking all these resources, and our beliefs, our consciousness are rooted in materialism and lack. So I think there's the imaginal cells within a caterpillar. Imagine that the caterpillar is its own organism, and then humanity is an organism. So each individual in humanity is a cell. And there's going to be these imaginal cells that start waking up the bigger organism. It's time to evolve. It's time to have your metamorphosis. It's time to bring the next step of the organism's evolution, which is going to be a new earth. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be that golden age that philosophers, Indian mystics have been saying for centuries, that, there's these cycles that humanity goes through, and this is not inevitable, because what is inevitable, that could be one path, and then the other path is that we self-destruct
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, because there have been past civilizations that we're just now finding out that have completely disappeared from the face of the earth, and we don't know what happened to them. Maybe did they merge with technology? Did they destroy themselves in a war? Did they have a cataclysm that destroyed them? We don't even know the answers to these questions, but it's our humanity now, and that's where our younger generations come in. That's why these people that are talking with us are so eager to sit down and share their wisdom, because they know that our generation is has a lot of responsibility and needs guidance. It needs that light to come in for us. It needs to start waking up, and it's going to be in our hands basically to see if we choose that new earth golden age or self-destruction. And that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, the work that people, leaders, conscious leaders around us are actually coming together and seeing that this is a bigger mission for all of us. It's a huge mission, and it's a huge shift for humanity that must happen now, or else it's gonna be a bit too late.
Yeah, it certainly is. And here I want to bring up three things. Well, first, what you said about the caterpillar and which turns into a butterfly, it's sort of what Eckhart says in the first chapter of the book, which is flowering. And yeah,
Yes, yes.
and he talks about how Jesus and Buddha and all these messengers of God were the first flowers, the first people to have this enlightenment and this awakening to the new state of being and consciousness. And again, what he says about a new earth is that right now the humanity, well, yeah, humanity is flowering into a new being. And as you say, if we don't do it, then the other result, the other future will be a future in which we destroy ourselves. And do you think we can still save ourselves from climate change and from all that we have been doing wrong since the past century?
That's a very big, loaded question. I can't say with complete certainty, because I don't want to say the future is uncertain, because if we start creating the future, then we will manifest, we'll give the future a direction. But if there's a lot of chaos and there's no leadership guidance, people within the being, within the community, within the organism, that act as these flowers or as these butterflies and remind people, oh, this is who we are. We are not these beings rooted in fear, in lack. That mentality is what has brought us to where we are now. And the antithesis of that is doing things out of love and consciousness, and being aligned with the higher source, being aligned with our energy of joy. At the end of New Earth, he says, nothing ever great happens without that enjoyment, that passion. And when we start waking up to these ideas and being those leaders around us, around our community, then it'll lead to these effects. And it's already happening. The awakening already started. It's the age of information. We all have access to this knowledge. And maybe a couple centuries ago, no one can access this New Earth book that can be a huge game changer in terms of your consciousness. But now, we can access this information. We have, we're allowing more and more people in the planet to have access to the internet. So now we have more information at our fingertips than what the president of the United States had 10 years ago, And it's our job to use this technology, use these things that we're creating as tools of consciousness, as tools of restoring harmony in nature, restoring harmony. We've gone so far out of the natural cycles and rhythms of the planet that now it's like humanity isn't in harmony with the other species, in harmony with the patterns of the sun and the patterns of the other planets and all these things. It's we've gone so far away from that, and we're acting kind of as another virus for the planet in a way, if we don't start getting in tune with the planet, with with nature in general as well. So I do think we can reverse. I think a lot of the effects, and when we start advancing our knowledge about how to leverage these technologies and shifting the systems of how we're running them right now, which are based on economic gain, when we create new systems for ourselves that are serving the environment, that are serving our own consciousness, our well-being, then that's when things could really start reversing. And there are entrepreneurs, there are authors, there are speakers, there's many light workers on the planet right now that are making that vision happen of the new earth. So I'm pretty optimistic about all these things. I love talking about this as well.
Yeah, I love it too. And the other thing which I wanted to mention, and it has to do a lot with what you have just said, is the school system. How do you think the school system, well, yeah, the education system all around the world is empowering or disempowering this generation, so us, to create this change, this transformation? Because just one thing I want to point out, the transformation journey, which is the one of the brands besides the Reader Lounge, which I am trying to build, in this case with the podcast. For me, with this transformation, it's not just about like transformation in business, transformation in finances, nor just as in personal growth. It's also about transformation of how we do things as a society, how we do things for the environment and with the environment. And I think that sort of passion that also made me start this, in this case, this podcast, also made me resonate a lot with the series in Netflix, Zack Down to Earth. Because, for example, I loved the episode of Darin and Zack in Costa Rica, because you can just see how those people have a different system of education in which kids are empowered and encouraged to learn by themselves and to try new things. You can see how these guys are building their houses and their community with the environment, and how they are synergizing with all these things. And again, so just like the question to know your perspective is, how do you think our our current education system, which is going to school, then university, then getting a job and all that, how do you think that is either empowering or disempowering the new possibility of a new earth?
Hmm. I don't want to put it in either or. I don't want to say it's disempowering or empowering. I think you can use it both ways. Education, the institutions are what, and the way that the system is laid out in most higher education systems is that basically input a student and a class of students, give them the same material, and you're basically like printing copies of these people. And what I realized with my education and how other people approach their own education is so different. Is so different. The way that we learn, the way that, I mean, I think we should in our classes really focus on what lights us up in a way. So it's true that we need like a balance of learning math, science, languages. All these things are good to have, But there comes a point where if you're extremely overachiever and you're, let's say, a genius in numbers, then some part of the education system needs to acknowledge that this person is, this is what their talent is, their gift. So let's develop that gift, let's develop that talent in them. Not just, oh yeah, cool, you took the class, now take languages, and then the kid is like, wait, no, I want to do the other thing.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to sometimes feeling that our schools and our classes don't align with what we need in the moment, and unmotivate us as well.
I have two little cousins. They are 2 and 4 years old, and
Mm.
what I am trying to do in some sort of way with them is to like kind of start to teach them a little about money and finances, but in a way in which it is like in which it fits for the mind of the kid. Because if not, then 10 years from now they might take this path of consciousness and of awakening, or they might just go in this path of being another copy, which is printed by the education system. And well, and just I wanted to say, well, yeah, to ask two more things before wrapping up. And so the first one is, what is your definition of transformation?
Transformation. So this is just off the heart. you know I don't want to make this definition intellectual, but the way I've perceived transformation in my life is seeing how the inner work that I've been doing reflects all around me. And it all starts with you going and looking inside yourself, looking to all these beliefs, all these negative thoughts, and learning that you are not that, learning that you are not your thoughts, you are not your beliefs, you are not your name, your family. Going from within, you have all the answers. You have all the answers. And when you do that inner work consistently, you do, you know, place the intention, bringing it back full circle, like placing the intention to do something different, and dare to create, dare to think differently. Then that's when you start transforming not only your life, but you start transforming the lives of other people. You influence and impact others with your energy, because you made that conscious decision of transformation. So that's a long definition, but that's what came to me.
No, yeah, I do get what you mean. It's more of a process of choosing
Mm.
consciously to identify that these things that you might have identified with are not you, and to start awakening and building a new reality, right?
Mm.
So
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
And well,
Mm.
just the last thing, again, turning a little into the part of learning with the education system. How do you personally have a balance between, or optimize your time so that you can um, do more with your entrepreneurial path, and also at school? Because even though you are about to finish university, you have been there for 4 years, and you, if I'm not mistaken, you started with the entrepreneurship and all these things with actual practice about a year ago. Am I right?
Yes, a year ago.
Yeah, and in this year, how have you been able to like uh, um perform at both things, at school, just to keep going, and with your personal projects.
Yeah. I learned that it's not about time management, it's about how you manage your energy and your attention. So without you mentioned before this that it's in the morning right now for you, that you were doing your morning routine. And a couple of years ago, I didn't have a morning routine. I didn't, meditate in the morning, and I didn't take a cold shower. All these things that help me build myself in the morning so I have abundant energy during the day. For example, right now I'm fasting and I have energy. I feel that I can optimize my performance by using these tools that I've gathered. And for people it's going to be different. How do you build up your energy? How do you recharge your energy? How do you take care of your nutrition, your sleep, all these pillars of wellness so you can actually do different things and pursue them. If I didn't have the energy, I would have probably said, "Look, Emiliano, I can't talk right now. I need to do other things." But since I have the energy, since I have the attention, our generation especially needs to work on our attention, because I know people that cannot literally have a conversation for 2 minutes before looking at their phone, watch a movie before looking at their phone. We'd have very short attention spans, but you manage your attention. And let's say you want to create a newsletter, one example, and you set aside a time to do that, like a block in your schedule. If you take away all the distractions around you and you enter that flow state that we were talking about, you will do it, and you will get it done much faster than you think. But if you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna create an Instagram post, I'm gonna write my first chapter of a book, for example. We're not there. I'm not there yet. I don't know about you, but we'll be there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But if I sat down and 5 minutes later I checked my phone, or I got distracted and I did another thing, then the time that it takes you to do what you want to do just gets longer and longer and longer and longer. So you can optimize your attention. It's never about time management. It's not about time management. It's about how do you manage your attention and your energy,
Hmm.
if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yes, it does. A couple days ago, I was listening to an interview to Jeff Bezos, in which they asked him how did he manage his time, and he said that he does not manage his time between his life and between work. He doesn't seek to have life work balance. What he seeks to have is a life work harmony, which for him means to have activities which don't drain his energy, but which give him more energy, so that if he is working, he gets energy from there, and if he is with his family, he gets more energy from there. And
Yeah.
that again has to do with what we were talking about in the beginning of how do Elon Musk, how do these great guys who we admire manage their life to be able to do all these things. And I think it's just
Mhm.
amazing, and part of transformation, part of looking within to unlearn certain beliefs that are limiting you.
Yes, yes. And it's also looking that discipline, consistency is not rigid. It's actually leads you to have more flexibility in your life. So when you have that discipline, when you implement these habits that give you energy, and then you learn what drains your energy, because that's another topic. But when you learn what drains your energy and give more attention and time to things that fuel you from the inside, you'll be able to replenish that energy, do more things that are important to you.
Yes, for sure. And well, I and this has been a great conversation, an empowering conversation, which has which I think has given energy to both of us. And
Yeah.
I thank you for setting the time to do this, because again, it's great to start my day like this with a great conversation. And well, just simply thank you for recommending me to read A New Earth. Thank you for being part of my transformation, and thank you for having become a friend of mine, an online friend of mine.
Mm. Yeah. Of course, man. Of course. And we got to link up in person very
For
soon.
sure. Yeah.